Welcome in to the PHNX Suns podcast, brought to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's #1 sportsbook app. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a 5-star review. I'm Lindsey Smith here with Espo and Gerald Bourguet. I believe Saul Bookman will be joining us a little bit later on in the show. Remains to be seen. Happy Tuesday. Hope you guys had a good holiday weekend of sorts. Anything fun on your weekend radar?
Okay, I gotta ask you guys. I saw Top Gun Maverick yesterday. I'm not asking for a review. I don't even know if you've seen it, but if you were a fighter pilot, what would your call handle, your call sign like Maverick be? You got one?
Frax.
What?
Frax.
Frax.
Okay. Why?
It's a nickname from my some of my OG friends back when I was really young.
Really?
It's Nillafrax is the whole thing, but Frax is the shortened version. Yeah.
That's a rap name. If
I was gonna say.
Go check out the old tracks. I'd go with Doughboy. I just think that would be. I think that'd be a fun one. So.
I don't know. I'd probably go G Money or something stupid with G in there.
Girth.
Oh God.
What? One of the guys, Bob was his name. So.
Bob?
Okay.
And that was his actual
that's a
name,
solid
so.
one.
Probably be Girth from above.
So yeah.
Girth from above. That's fantastic. I love that.
Mikkel in the chat says his call sign would be Phoenix.
There you go. That's a
was
good one.
actually a Phoenix in the movie. So
Yeah, I believe
anyways,
that.
random. I got wondering that.
Like an actual mythical phoenix?
Could be
I don't know.
Whatever it is, whatever floats your boat, Gerald. It could go multiple ways.
Was it in the movie?
No.
Like Fox?
No, it was a woman whose call sign was Phoenix.
Less exciting.
That would make it a totally different movie if it was fighter jets taking on a Phoenix that had risen from the ashes.
Oh my goodness. Well, that was your question of the day. We're going to go with that one. Yes.
Mine would be cheese.
Cheese.
So
I'm
Saul
not
wouldn't
mad at
like
that
you?
one.
All right.
Yeah, you and Saul would fight.
That's tough.
All right. Well, it is Trade Machine Tuesday. And today we're going to look at the 7 sign-in trade deals that Gerald put together for Deandre Ayton and the Phoenix Suns. That article is over at gophnx.com if you want to sit down and read it and really dissect everything. But we're going to talk about it a little bit here today. We're going to go through all of these things that Gerald kind of came up with. They made sure they were legitimate options, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the money actually made sense there. They were legal type of moves that these teams could make. So these aren't exactly too far pie in the sky.
Should we put the disclaimer on this before we get into
We got a lot of disclaimers to go through on this. Yeah.
Would you like to go through the first one?
The first disclaimer, I believe we are all in agreement that the Suns should retain Deandre Ayton, and for me at least, just force him and Monty to go therapy. Work through it. Talk about your feelings, you guys. Learn how to communicate better.
Couples therapy does work. At least in my mind. Don't ask my wife. Anyways, yeah, I agree. Unless there's some big game hunting that you could go for, which I know we'll kind of get into that. But I think the most logical way to go with this is bringing DA back.
Yeah, and that's kind of the conclusion. It's not even so much, it doesn't even matter where you lie on the spectrum of, what you believe DA's ceiling is or what you believe his fit is with this team. It's honestly just as much about the returns and sign-in trades are historically low because the math is tricky to navigate with a sign-in trade, and we'll get into some of that. But your best option kind of by default is to figure out a way to bring DA back. I don't think a lot of people are on board with a full 5-year max, because if it didn't happen last year, it's very unlikely to happen at this point in time. But if you can bring it back on a 4-year max, then you still retain your flexibility. You still have one of the best 5 to 7 centers in the NBA, and you still have the core intact of what is a really, really good basketball team. I know that people are low on this group right now because of the way that they fizzled out, but you also don't want to react because you look at all these other contenders, and the one thing that they have on their side is repeated playoff failures and getting over that hump, and then continuity and cohesion and having structure and culture and all those things intact. So if you're breaking it up at this point in time, it better be for a good move. And as we'll cover, the home run move might not be there in a sign and trade scenario.
And you brought up in the article, there's another reason that 5 million reasons why DA should probably just sign that $4 million or 4-year deal here in Phoenix, and it's that he can make $5 million more than he can sign on the open market with that, correct?
Right. And that's the big point that the Suns have on their side is, they could offer him the 5-year max, which is a lot more money. I think it'd be 170 some million compared to a 4-year 131 million that another team can sign. But even their 4-year max that they can offer is still 5.5 million more than what anyone else can offer. So the Suns are in the driver's seat. If they want to keep DA, they have every resource available to do that. It's just going to come down to, well, does DA want a 4-year max? Does he want out? Can they repair those bridges? A lot of other questions that those two sides will have to answer.
All right, so we already have some comments rolling in. Rick James said just sign him and trade him during the season. So, Gerald, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know you wrote about this in your article. There are a lot of guidelines that we have to take into consideration when we're talking about some of these. And I know it's going to be a lot to kind of try and share and digest, but if you could at least give us like the cliff notes of it all.
Yeah, so cliff notes, if the Suns, if DA plays on his 1-year qualifying offer, which is an unlikely scenario, but it would be for a record, I think $16 million. He's on a 1-year contract, and then he has the power to veto any trade. If he signs an offer sheet with another team and the Suns match, I believe it's the same scenario where the Suns, similar but same, where they can't trade him and for another year. So you want to try to sign him yourself and keep that flexibility. Then I believe it would be that December.
It's usually like 15th.
Yeah, it's something like that where recently signed free agents are then trade eligible. And again, the right scenario for a superstar might not even come about at the trade deadline. So this could be a moot point for those who are suggesting, like, let's just sign him and trade him down the line later. It might not be for a while. So you would still have to repair those bridges and fix, whatever that off the court stuff that we're hearing rumblings about. You'd still have to deal with that. But in terms of the actual sign and trades, the math is difficult because of what's called base year compensation. So basically, Ayton would be signing for a starting salary that year of $30.5 million, but his contract value, as far as the trade math is concerned, would only be $15.25 million. So it's hard to automatically make up that gap because you can only trade for 125% of, you can only take on that much more. So in this case, the Suns, what they would be bringing in, since his contract would be at $15.25 million, would be 125% of that, which is just under $19.2 million. So they can only bring that in a straight up trade unless you're getting another team involved or you're adding different players into the mix on both sides to make the math work. So neither team is taking on too much in salary, because the Raptors would be taking $30.5 million in, but the outgoing trade value would only be 15. So it's hard to overcome that type of math just right off the bat. The other team would need to send out $24 million in salary, which is more than the $19 million that they could take in. Right. So that's difficult to overcome right away.
Forgive my lizard brain if you said this, but if they match a 4-year max, they can't trade him in the first year, correct?
If they match a 4-year max, I would need to look this up, but I think he might be trade. Oh no, if he match, if they match. Sorry, if they match, I don't think he's trade eligible for the first year. Yeah.
So a lot to take into consideration when we are talking about things like this, but we're going to do our best to make sure we're sharing information that is legitimate, factual, and actually possible.
Realistic.
Right,
in most cases.
which is what will lead us to these 7 potential sign and trade options that Gerald worked so hard on, making sure the math was correct, making sure it all worked out. So we'll start with Indiana Pacers. So Miles Turner, Chris Duarte, and 2022 number 6 overall pick for DeAndre Ayton, Landry Shamet, and a lottery-protected 2025 first-round pick.
Yeah, so this one, right off the bat, we've talked a little bit about a Miles Turner workaround, and I do want to shout out David Nash of the 4-Point Play, because he was a huge help to me in double-checking my math and working through some scenarios here to make sure that what we were suggesting is legal, because there are some trades that you put into the trade machine, even on Fanspo, and the math doesn't work technically, but it still goes through on that. So be wary of that if you're spitballing trades.
Nobody's aware of that. They just want to get the best player.
I know,
for
but that's we're raising awareness here. This one it's okay. Like, Chris Duarte had a nice rookie season, and he's another young scorer that would be on a cheap contract, and you would hope that he has a little bit of scoring and ball handling pop, because we saw what happened when Chris Paul was ailing and Devin Booker was double teamed every time the offense just sputtered. Miles Turner would kind of be the DA replacement, and he wouldn't be a very good one-on-one replacement for DA. He's a great rim protector and shot blocker, and he can shoot the 3 ball with much more confidence than DA currently does, but he's not particularly efficient. I think he shot like 34% this year. On medium volume. So he's a guy that can spread the floor, but doesn't do it at a very dangerous rate. He's not a good rebounder. And it would remain to be seen if he's a guy that can kind of defend on the perimeter the way that DA does in a potential playoff scenario. So this one is kind of to get things started, and it's not terrific. You probably would have to throw in a first rounder down the road, lottery protected in this case, if you're asking for Chris Duarte back, which you would need to make the math work. So I am curious about your guys' thoughts on this first one.
I mean, first and foremost, my biggest question is, does DA want to go to Indiana?
Well,
because I would say no in a heartbeat to that if I were DA, for one. And then 2, do you think Indiana is willing to give up Chris Duarte, realistically?
I think that DA wants to go wherever he can be a focal point. I think he'd be a focal point in Indy if they bring him in. So I don't think that that's necessarily problem. To me, if you were going to do this, you should have done it at the trade deadline and gotten Sabonis, right? The better of the bigs that they had, in my mind, that would fit the Sun system. I don't need a center who gets 6 rebounds a game. I mean, people are frustrated with DeAndre Ayton. You mentioned this in an article. Imagine how they'd feel about Miles Turner as their center. Like, this does nothing for me in the least. Just nothing for me in terms of excitement in a deal, or even being okay and accepting of a deal if you're the Suns. I don't understand why you'd make that kind of move.
This goes back to our disclaimer that if we're pursuing a sign and trade here for
we're going to
DA,
get the short end of the stick.
You are backed into a corner where there are irreconcilable differences, and you have to trade him to get something for him.
Look, I get getting the short end of the stick, but this is like going up to bat in a Major League Baseball game with a toothpick. This is the shortest of the short sticks that you're drawing out of all these options. I don't like this one at all.
I also think that you've got to take into consideration, obviously, that number 6 pick as well. Is there somebody in this draft that you really like? And because there is a caveat that they're not allowed to, quote unquote, publicly, legally talk about these type of trades till after the draft.
Right.
How do you navigate that?
They're not allowed to get caught talking about these deals.
This
I
would
put up air quotes for anybody who's listening on audio.
They would have to be very careful about how they pursued this tampering wise, because it would have to be a scenario where it is the Pacers drafted someone that the Suns really like after the fact, because as you mentioned, draft is a week before free agency starts. So you can't be negotiating this type of deal before free agency starts. It happens all the time in the NBA, but like you have to go about it the right way. Or as we saw with who was it? It was the Hawks and the Bogdanovich, the Bucks last year. with their sign and trade that the league basically nixed. And then he wound up in Atlanta. Like, you have to be careful how you go about it.
Saul's here, everybody.
Saul's been here the whole time.
Chat knew, and they were like, "Oh, hey, what's up, buddy?" I was just gonna let you guys finish it out.
Do you wanna chime in on this particular one? That's my
There's no
biggest thing.
way.
I don't think he agrees to go there.
Yeah, because nobody wants to go to Indiana.
Why would
With those
you?
bums, there's no way. I don't care how much he wants to be the superstar
Even
or
if
the focal point.
yeah.
He doesn't want to go back to the 19-win seasons of 2018. I promise you that.
He doesn't care.
Yes, he
DA
does
wants
care.
to be the focal point.
No, he
wants
wants
his
to
money.
win too.
Then if he wants to win, he would shut up. He'd take the 4-year here. Like that's the simple play here. If you want to win and make your money, be in Phoenix. If it's not about being the focal point.
You know how places have like 0 days since workplace incident?
Yeah.
We just reverted back to 0 days since insulting a city. It was like 60 before that.
Dude, I spent a
Listen,
week
I
in
got
Indiana,
mad beef with
like
Indiana.
3 or 4 months ago. Trust me, that place is a dumpster fire.
I did not enjoy my time that I was there. So
Simplified. Fuck them Indianans.
Oh.
That's what
a
we're
little
saying.
aggressive. All right. Any final thoughts on this potential option? Nope. Okay,
No.
we're moving on. Atlanta Hawks. So this one has Clint Capella.
Wait. I do have something to say to what Espo's point was about, well, if he wants to win, then he should. I think they don't have to be exclusive of each other. The fact that he wants to be a focal point and he wants to win. I don't think you can only have one or the other.
Have you looked at the teams with cap space? Anybody he'd be able to go to, or some of these sign
Why
and
can't
trade
he want to be the
things?
focal point here?
He can.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm not saying he can't
I
want to
mean-
be the
Oh, well,
focal
Saul,
point.
we did a disclaimer off the top
Mhm.
that in the perfect situation, DA would remain a Phoenix Sun and they would figure it out.
So then we
we
don't have to
already
talk about this.
disclaimered
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
This is just
Well, then tell Espo, because he's the one that attacked me with that state bullshit.
okay. Moving on, the Atlanta Hawks. So this one has Clint Capella and Bogdan Bogdanovic coming to Phoenix for DA, Dario Saric, Torrey Craig, and an unprotected 2023 first round pick.
I think that's 25.
Oh,
Yeah,
2025?
Yeah.
Okay,
25.
2025 first round pick. The original target here, this is something you shared in the article as well, and something we talked about, I believe, last week, is that it was kind of Clint Capella, Kevin Huerter, and Jalen Johnson were kind of in the conversation, but the math on that was off. So that
Yes.
wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, so Fanspo's their trade machine has Clint Capella's value, his contract value, at a slightly different amount than what it actually is on Spot Track. So that was the reason for the math not panning out in that case. But if you switch to Clint Capella and Bogdan Bogdanovic, it works with this particular trade option here. And this one is probably, out of all of the kind of underwhelming options, this is the one that I like the most.
This is the best underwhelming option.
Yeah, because I feel like Clint Capella is about as good as you're going to ask for in terms of a one-on-one replacement for DA. Like, in terms of guys that are actually available, he's a better rebounder. He's a better shot blocker. He's very limited offensively compared to DA. That mid-range release valve that the Suns had with DA would be completely gone. But they would be getting a nice bench piece who can score on his own in Bogdan Bogdanovic, kind of a secondary ball handler, playmaker, shooter. And that's kind of, in terms of what you could expect out of a DA trade, this feels like one of the best case scenarios that's not one of our superstar pie in the sky trades.
This one feels to me like you're saying, if we want to be the kind of team we were last year, this accomplishes it.
Right.
I like you get a suitable replacement at center,
Mhm.
and you bolster the bench a little bit, so it makes up for a little bit of the offense you're losing for DA. You're getting a little bit more on the bench. I feel like this is a tread water kind of move. Make sure you're good again next year, but it doesn't necessarily put you any closer to a championship. You're not taking some home run swing where this is a low, high, not a high ceiling, not a low floor. This is just a keep things status quo kind of trade to me.
This trade sucks.
It
This
doesn't
trade
suck,
sucks.
Saul.
Dude,
It really doesn't suck.
Listen, I'm just never going to be on board with trading DA for the same shit that you're going to get back. Like, it's just, it does nothing for me. Like, if we don't get significantly better, then what's the point? You might as well keep DA.
That's the thing.
But
That's- we
this
did that
exercise
already.
is simply
We said
to
that already.
say if it is so far beyond repair for the Suns and they have to resort to a sign and trade, this is the exercise to talk through it. This is not a best case scenario type of a situation. This is a literal worst case scenario. We have to do something before the next season starts. This is this exercise.
This is reality.
I will say this: if that's what we're playing by, then I guess this is the best of the worst. I just it does nothing for me. Like, I like Bogdan Bojanovic. He's a good player, but he doesn't move the needle dramatically a lot. And then Clint Capella is just Clint Capella. He's going to get you rebounds. He's going to dunk the ball. Like, I could give a shit less about anything else that he
He's going to play defense. Like, this is as close you're going to get to a DA replacement at center in any of these deals. But I think one of the closest guys you'll get. He doesn't have the potential that DA has, but in terms of production right now, it's as close as you're going to get to a guy to step in there and provide you what he's getting.
Except offensively.
Right. If you're making this trade, it's because you are buying into what you saw out of JaVale McGee and Bismack Biyombo and saying, okay, the Suns offense can do that with a better player, Clint Capella. If it can do that with these guys, what can it do with Clint Capella? That's what you're trying to buy into. And I get right now, like, buying into a Chris Paul and Devin Booker heavy offense after what happened in the playoffs. Not everybody's going to be on board with that. Like, and that's totally fair.
Does Clint Capella, excuse me, I haven't watched a lot of Hawks games.
Sure.
So does
How
Clint
dare you,
does Clint
Saul?
Capella solve the riddle of what would have happened against the Mavs this year or against the Golden State Warriors in terms of, oh, let's just spread these fucks out and attack their big men because they can't guard in the perimeter?
It's going to be. This literally is the same. You're going to wind up having the same problems you had this year, probably more so.
So then we would just triple down on McGee and Bismack as well. Like, we have nobody that could guard on the perimeter that's a big whatsoever on the roster.
I don't disagree on that.
Again, those bigs are very rare, and even DA, who's considered one of those bigs, struggled with that. So that might be honestly a separate conversation as far as, okay, who are you going to target who's a small ball 5 who you can reliably throw out there for when other teams go small, because those guys are in short supply in the NBA right now, and that would be something you'd have to explore probably separately. But yeah, I think defensively it would be a slight downgrade on the perimeter for sure. I think it'd be an upgrade in the interior, and I think offensively, just based on this series, like we saw Kevon Looney tearing apart the Mavs by just doing the little things.
An
like,
upgrade on the interior, how?
As a shot blocker. Like, Clint Capella is a better interior presence at the rim than DA is. Not that DA is bad in that regard, but he doesn't get a lot of blocks. He contests a lot of shots. But Capella's slightly better in that regard.
You'd imagine the defensive scheme would change too with Capella, because you wouldn't be as willing to switch like they did.
It'd be
with
less
DA
switching.
Versatility wise, Clint Capella limits you in terms of what DA can do versus what he can do defensively. So I feel like the blocking shots at the rim thing kind of neutralizes itself out when you can't really match up Capella the way you could with DA.
Yeah, but he also is a better on the boards. So like
the rebounds, sure.
So like I think you'd have to get stronger with your perimeter defense in general with this kind of a deal. But I think Bogdan makes your bench better too, which is something you can't ignore in this, is that your bench scoring gets better, your bench shooting, or your option to bring him in with some of those starters and spread the floor a little bit more becomes a better chance. So I'm okay with this one, but it's not my favorite of the group.
Fair.
I think it's my second favorite of the non-pie in the sky ones.
That's where I'm at too.
Yeah.
I think this is probably my second favorite of the ones we're going through.
And someone did ask in the comments, why would the Suns include a first rounder in this trade? And it's a distant one, 2025. And it would be because if you're getting Bogdan Bogdanovic back in the trade as well, like DA alone is not going to cut it. Like Dario Saric and Torrey Craig, those are expiring contracts, but they're not needle movers in any way. You'd have to throw in some type of sweetener to get the deal, especially if you're coming at it from a place without leverage, which is the scenario we're talking about here.
All right, let's move on. The next one we've got with the Chicago Bulls. So Nikola Vucevic, Patrick Williams, and Alex Caruso for Deandre Ayton, Jay Crowder, campaign, and a lottery-protected 2025 first-round pick. Clearly, we know how Espo feels about this one. Gerald, Saul, are you feeling the same
Sure
way?
you don't want to just trade the whole roster away? Fuck. Jesus. For those guys? Like,
Hey,
Alex Caruso and Patrick Williams are good. I understand the trepidation about Vucevic, though.
You had me until you started mentioning all the guys the Suns were going to have to trade. And I was like, because you're right. Alex Caruso, I would love Alex Caruso on the Suns. Like he's a dog. He gets after it defensively. He's that annoyance that we talked about. We don't really have anymore, because Chris Paul used to be kind of that annoyance, but now because he's kind of treading, in the wrong direction, trending in the wrong direction defensively, he can only be a nuisance for 2 minutes out of every 48. You know what I mean?
Right.
You need that guy that's a constant pain in the ass. And just causes a little bit of discomfort for the other team. And Alex Caruso definitely does that. Patrick Williams, from Florida State, a great, all-around athlete. The Suns were rumored to be in that mix.
Injury concerns.
Injury concerns for sure. But I do like his flexibility. He's a good, solid big. But, oh, man, you got to give up not only DA, but you also got to give up a savvy Jay Crowder. And I know Jay Crowder is kind of almost on the same trajectory as CP3, where they're on the backslide of their career, but he is still a savvy vet, and I don't really like to throw him into that mix unless we can get something that I feel like is tangible. I feel like you're already giving up so much with DA. That return, I'm not a big...
You want me to bring in that Elmer Fudd looking mofo and give out Jay Crowder? You want a dog? You got Jay Crowder. I don't need Alex Caruso as what would appear to be the centerpiece of a DA deal.
The two-time All-Stars, the centerpiece of the DA deal.
Vucevic,
yes,
we saw what he did in Chicago last year, and he's a defensive sieve. I don't need Nikola Vucevic in this right now. No, I'm good, thank you.
I think my favorite part about this one is the minute that we said the scenario, everyone in the chat was just popping off. There's a hard pass. There's I only like Caruso, but the rest is a hell no. There's Patrick Williams is underrated. Patrick Williams, I'm down. I just dry heaved in my mouth. This one is the most all over the place so far that we've talked about that the chat has.
It's fitting because with DA, the chat is always all over the place. He either sucks or he's great. He's a future Hall of Famer. He's a scrub. It's all over the place. Pay the man, don't pay the man. So it would be fitting that we would make a trade for a bunch of guys that fit the same ilk.
There you go.
Look, if I knew you were going to get Patrick Williams that reaches his full potential, then this is a little bit more.
Also, if you
appealing.
trade Jay Crowder, then there's no more pool parties, man.
Yeah, who's gonna host the pool parties?
Oh no, not the pool party. All right, Gerald, I'll give you a minute to share your two thoughts, and then we'll move on.
Obviously, at the center spot, this is a downgrade, especially with the year Vucevic had. He didn't shoot the ball well from three, but he is a more capable three-point shooter. You would be hoping, again, that an offense that targets its centers in the way that it does would help him. He's not the most athletic rim-rolling big, though, so that's my concern here. Caruso would be a really good addition to their perimeter defense. He would be a more reliable backup for campaign come playoff time, which is a huge need. We saw that with Chris Paul not being 100%, how big that was. And Patrick Williams is super young. At some point, you need to get young guys that are capable of starting or playing right now on team cost-effective contracts. Patrick Williams is that dude, even coming off a season where he was limited by, I think it was a wrist injury. Jay Crowder, I love Jay Crowder. It'd be tough giving him up in addition to DA, but he's also, like Saul said, on the backside of his career. He's an expiring contract, so that would make him more attractive to a team like the Bulls that's trying to compete now but wants to maintain flexibility. Campaign, let's bring back the campaign revival tour in the Windy City.
Yeah, I love
that didn't
campaign.
go well.
I love campaign going back to a city where somebody in the organization
Said he-
anonymously said he doesn't have NBA talent.
Yeah.
Like, so that'd be entertaining for sure.
This one is one of my least favorite ones of the trades that I worked out here. But if you are looking for, again, if you're in a situation where you need to deal DA and get something back in return, getting a two-time All-Star and 2 capable rotation players who you could actually trust come playoff time, you would still have to figure out how you're going to hide Vucevic in the playoffs on defense, but that's not the worst thing in the world.
All right, moving on to the next one. San Antonio Spurs, Jakob Poeltl, Devin Vassell, and a 2022 number 9 overall pick.
I do have a legit question, and actually somebody brought it up. Somebody asked, and I don't know this, but do we have any trades that do not involve centers?
Yes.
We do? Okay. I just want to make sure we cross that.
Yeah.
Okay. So San Antonio Spurs, Jakob Poeltl, Devin Vassell, and a 2022 number 9 overall pick for Deandre Ayton. How y'all feeling about this one?
Do it.
I think
Jakob!
this is
I
my
want me some
favorite
Poeltl.
one of the non-pie in the sky ones, just because I think there's a lot of potential here with like younger players. You'd have to play the waiting game a little bit more, but there is some potential.
I was being sarcastic. I don't like this trade at all.
I mean,
I
there's
just like to
not
say
a
Poeltl.
ton to pick up from.
Are you not Poeltl enough for the Poeltl Club?
Nope.
Look,
I'm purtled out.
one big reason I would hate to do this is the fact that you'd be handing Greg Popovich DeAndre Ayton
True.
and tapping into that potential.
Oh my
It
God.
just feels like it's something that would come back to bite you in the ass.
Could
so
you
damn
imagine that?
hard.
Could you imagine in a worst case scenario, DA goes to San Antonio and all of a sudden he becomes fucking David Robinson and they go all the way to the playoffs and they eliminate the Suns. The Spurs. Oh my God. No. Just for that
That's
reason.
my thought. Like,
Just for that reason.
So we're living in fear of a play-in team right now.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
I just
no,
want
but-
to
obviously-
verify that we're
obviously-
living in fear of
Obviously,
DA
in this
becoming
scenario,
David
they would not be a
Robinson.
play-in team in this scenario.
No, they wouldn't.
Like
but they're not a
if DA
contender
turns
either.
into a fucking dominant big man,
Well-
like the way we hoped he would be.
He's been a dominant big man here.
I'm talking next level dominant.
let's
like
be
30-20
let's be fair.
type
The
dude,
Suns
you know what I
aren't
mean?
the Suns aren't a contender if they make this deal.
No,
I disagree with that.
I think it drops them into that range with the Utahs, the
Denvers.
the Denvers, the
Without-
New Orleans if Zion comes back strong. Like,
I disagree with that, and that's because people don't understand how good Jakob Poeltl actually is. Like, they look at his overall numbers and they think that he's just kind of an average dude. He's a better defensive center than DeAndre Ayton. If you look at the numbers, if you look at the rim protection, the defense on the interior, he's one of the best under the radar defenders in the NBA at any position. Then you throw in Devin Vassell, who is going to be a pretty good two-way player. He's not a primary, maybe even a secondary option, but he's a good wing player who can match up at the guard spot or on the wing.
And bolster the bench, which we've talked a lot
And
about.
bolster the bench, and you get the number 9 pick. And I know a lot of people aren't really high on the draft right now because, let's be honest, we were watching a playoff run. We weren't paying attention to the draft prospects in the last couple of months. But that's still a top 10 pick in return for DA on top of Poeltl and Vassell, who you should have drafted, one of the guys that you could have drafted.
I'm talking next year though. I'm not talking
Oh yeah,
long term.
Poeltl's he's an expiring, so he might only be a rental.
I get that, but I'm saying next year they move into that more the middle of the pack rather than a Western Conference frontrunner. It may set you up better for the future, but if you're looking at next year, I think that takes you a step down, right?
But
You
none
get
of
that
these
9
trades do
pick.
that.
Right.
There's one that I think might be
Aside
able
from
to.
our pie in the sky
Well,
ones,
yeah, I
most
mean,
of these
those,
you're
obviously.
taking a slight step back and hoping that system trumps the loss of talent that you're dealing with.
This
here.
is James Jones looking at the future and going, how do I bring in talent that can grow with us
Right.
that's cost effective, I think.
All right, next one, Detroit Pistons.
Mhm.
So we've got Jeremy Grant and Isaiah Stewart and a lottery-protected 2025 first-round pick for DA and Jay Crowder.
Now we talking.
This is
This
your
is what I
favorite,
like.
Espo?
I think Jeremy
Okay.
Grant gives you the power forward you've been looking for, the guy that can score when Devin Booker and Chris Paul can't get it going. I like this move. Now, you're obviously going to have to go find a center, but I think you'll go out, you'll get creative if you're James Jones and try to find that. I like this. Plus, you get a guy that punked LeBron, and I'm a big fan of that as well. So you're getting what Jay Crowder provided you in terms of that.
You get the drama.
You get the drama. I'm obviously kidding with that part, but I like what Grant could bring offensively. This is a big swing that has a high ceiling, but also could crater too. But that's the kind of move. If you're going to move off DA, I want to take a big chance. If you're not getting a sure thing in a superstar, I want to take a chance on a guy that could dramatically change your fortunes.
Dramatically change?
If he reaches what you think he can in this deal, because I think he can be that third scoring option you didn't really have that could wind up creating his own shot. Now, the biggest thing is, does his ego want to play here because he left Denver because he wanted to be that guy, right? But he was that guy in Detroit and saw it. Maybe it ain't all it's cracked up to be, and that's what you got to hope. So,
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a hell no for me. Like I'm not a big Jeremy Grant guy to begin with. I do like the flexibility. Like we talked, I was just talking about who you're going to put on the perimeter when you have to guard some of these teams, and Jeremy Grant will give you that. I'll give him that, and he is a better scorer. And he definitely stepped it up a notch when he got to Detroit. But again, like, and this is just, I'm looking at this team for what they are, the Suns, and you put this piece in there. If you put this piece in there, you're hoping that everybody else can step it up as well. And we're talking about championship aspirations, and I just don't feel like Jeremy Grant is going to get you to that level that you need to be at.
I think my concern with Jeremy Grant is, okay, for starters, he's on that expiring contract. So this could just shape up to be a rental depending on his opinion of himself. And that's probably the bigger concern that I have is he left a really good situation on a contender in Denver where he was like the fourth guy because he thought he was a number one option. He went to Detroit. He took that money. Everybody made fun of the Pistons for giving him that deal. And then it looked like he could be that dude. He was really good there. And then the efficiency kind of dove off, and then the effort kind of dove off. And now suddenly the Pistons have had him involved in trade talks dating back to the trade deadline. So it's one of those things where, is he ready to look at his last 2 years in Detroit and be like, okay, maybe I'm not that guy. I could win a championship with the Suns if I embrace that role. Or is he still like, no, I'm the dude. I should be the dude. Because then you're basically trading one guy who wants to do more for another guy who wants to do more, and you still have to plug your center spot. So that's tricky.
I mean, that's fair. That's a fair assessment on that. I have no argument there.
And that's my biggest thing, especially.
Was this the one that you were excited about?
This is the one that I think if you make it outside of the two we'll get at the end that are obviously no-brainers if they could happen, but there's very limited chance that they'd happen. This one makes me go, okay, at least you're getting a guy with star potential that could come in and fill one of the major problems you had in that playoff run in terms of, third scorer, perimeter defense, those kind of things. So.
Right. And he is a very good two-way player, but that's the thing, is you would be hoping that he would take what he learned in Detroit as a primary option and be able to do that as the third guy here, and then also buy into a lesser role and be that defensive, because he could be a very good small ball center for stretches as well. But, that's a lot to ask given what he's gone through the last 2 years.
I think there's too many what ifs with this one. It's not worth the risk.
I mean, being the best team on the worst team or the best player on the worst team in the league does nothing for me. Like, especially if you're not putting up outlandish numbers because you and I forget his name, their guard that they just picked from Oklahoma State.
Cade,
are the only two options on that team. Like, that's it. Mm-hmm. And you're putting up nice numbers, but nothing astronomically crazy. And I'll pass.
Like we said, I think most of these don't get you anywhere closer to where you want to be. This one was just intriguing. I think he could be a number two option here with Chris Paul having to step back a little bit just based on age.
All right, these next ones are kind of a go big or go home type of situation, just like the NBA Finals on the DraftKings Sportsbook app, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Transition.
New customers can make any $5 bet and get $150 in free bets instantly. And if you're looking to turn a small bet into a big payday during the NBA Finals, DraftKings has you covered with same-game parlays. This NBA season, there was a customer that placed a $5 same-game parlay and won over $5,000. So this is the type of scenario where you can go big and get your money and go home, thanks to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Use promo code PHNX. Make any $5 bet during the NBA Finals and get $150 in free bets instantly. That's promo code PHNX only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. That's 21 and older only, Arizona only. Gambling problem, 1-800-NEXT-STEP. New customers only, minimum $5 minimum deposit. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Are you guys so excited for these next ones? These are the ones that everyone wants to happen.
Yes.
All right, first up, let's talk about the Brooklyn Nets. So this one would have Kevin Durant coming to Phoenix for Deandre Ayton, Jay Crowder, Landry Shamet, and 3 future first-round picks.
Yeah, I'd do this in a heartbeat, but one, why would the Nets want Landry Shamet back, first of all?
To make the math work.
This isn't going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And I really hope I'm reverse jinxing this, but this is not going to happen.
Yes, it is.
Because Lindsey says so.
Espo. Like, why are you so damn disgruntled about these all the time?
I will drive DA, Landry Shamet, the 3 first-round picks in my trunk to the airport and personally welcome KD. The picks.
The picks.
Oh,
the picks are in the trunk. DA and Shamet are in the front.
Shamet maybe can drive the truck. I don't know.
Drive? It's a little small for DA.
No. I'd happily drive to the airport as fast as possible if this were a reality. I just don't think so. I do like Brendan Clean, our friend in the chat. Weed is legal here now. KD to Phoenix confirmed.
Sources.
Well,
listen, 3 first rounds is a lot. But if you're in championship contention every single year, then those 3 first rounds are kind of whatever. Like they don't really matter. And if you sign KD or if you get KD, you're here for 4 years. I think he has 4 years left on his deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a 4-year window. Those draft picks mean shit. They don't mean anything. So if you're the Suns, you do this in a heartbeat. If you're the Nets, you probably are like, no, we're gonna need something a little bit more, like another bigger name to go along and at least try to build in the future with. So,
and that's the tricky part. Was I tried to include, just to cut down on the first rounders, and people aren't going to be happy about this, but you have to include a Cam Johnson or a Mikal Bridges in a trade like this to really beat out everybody else. Cam Johnson, the math doesn't work. There is another alternative to this trade where you do KD for DA and Mikal Bridges straight up, and that does work mathematically.
I would still do that too.
Is it a yes? Let's go down. Saul, yes.
Yeah.
Gerald?
Yeah, because you still have Cam Johnson.
Espo?
I don't think twice. I'm like, hey, nice to see you. Bye.
Oh, man.
Bro.
As much as we love Mikal, I feel like this is a situation where you just have to kind of like
KD for Mikal and DA, you don't even think twice about that.
Yeah.
But I would much rather do the first version of this trade. If we're
of
comparing.
course.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Of course.
But if the Nets want more
That's
in terms
option
of actual
one.
young cornerstone blue chip talent,
That's the way to
then
sell it. That's
yeah.
the only way to sell it if you're Brooklyn. It's like, listen, we're going to give up a lot. We're hedging our bets that the future is going to be much, much different, minus Kyrie and KD, what you got. And you give them 2 centerpieces for the future.
Yes.
That's the only way you do this if you're Brooklyn. The other one is like, whatever. I'm 1,000,000% with that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the
No
chat's on
hesitation.
board too. I feel like I don't think I've seen one yet. Oh wait, no, there's one single no. But I also don't know if it was for this one or if it was for the last one. It could have been farther back. But everyone is pretty much on board.
This is like the thirst trap of trades. It's like, look, it's KD. You're like, I don't care what's on the other side. Like, yes, please.
Yeah.
Thirst trap.
It's
Gerald's like, come
It's-
look at this.
it's-
It's KD and Phoenix.
Don't ever make that post again.
So, look, like we talked about, I think it was last week on the show, we talked about Kevin Durant possibilities. This only happens if the Nets completely balk on handing Kyrie a new contract,
Which they will.
for fairly understandable reasons, honestly. And then Kevin Durant looks around at the roster and is like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, I can't finish the next 4 years here. I'm not going to win a title here. And then he looks at Phoenix and goes, okay, book CP3 and, whoever's left from a sign and trade, like, let's do that, and forces his way out.
Also, if you send DA to Brooklyn with Mikhail, I think he's more apt to do the sign and trade in the first place, just because he is going with Mikhail.
They're
I think they're besties. That makes them feel a little more confident and comfortable. I think, and you're going to New York. Like, let's be honest, that's a selling point, especially when you're talking about advertising money and sponsorships and stuff like that. I think that second scenario, I know we didn't put it up there, but that's the one. That is the one.
Well, I think it makes sense
That's the
for
most
all
feasible.
parties involved because Brooklyn can sell that, Phoenix can sell that.
Yeah.
I still don't think it happens.
Oh, but man, that tickles my fancy.
Instead of a thirst trap, it's a girth trap.
It is a girth trap.
Hashtag girth trap.
We should make a graphic for
Girth
that.
trap.
Oh, we don't need a graphic.
I feel like
have
we
girth
already
traps.
have a graphic for that.
no,
we just need to put girth trap on
That was
top of
darn.
it.
It's a girth trap.
Thought we
On
burned
it.
All
those.
right.
On it.
Our next
Instead
one.
of Woj bomb, it's a girth trap.
That's funny.
That's right. It is.
Oh, boy.
Okay. So our next scenario and our last scenario involves the Toronto Raptors. So this one has Pascal Siakam, Svi Mikhailiuk, for Deandre Ayton, Jay Crowder, Torrey Craig, and an unprotected 2023 first-round pick.
And to be clear, it's because the Suns already traded their first round pick this year, they wouldn't be able to do that until after the draft, but free agency is after the draft anyway. So because someone had asked about the Ted Stepien rule, which doesn't allow you to trade picks in back-to-back drafts. As soon as the draft is over, then
Then
the
you
cycle
can do it.
resets and you're able to. So just a heads up on that.
All right. Does this one feel any more realistic than Toronto's, or does it feel equally as pie in the sky to you guys?
As
You mean
the
it's
Nets,
Bro-
you mean?
you mean
That's what I
for
meant.
Brooklyn?
Yes, thank you.
I mean, I like Pascal Siakam. I don't think this is pie in the sky, but I don't know if I'm really on board with this trade.
I think for some reason Toronto has been very much wanting a center, like going after a center. There's been rumors about Gobert and in Toronto.
Gobert in Toronto makes sense, to be honest.
And I don't know. I'd rather have DA, a more versatile defensive center in today's game. We've seen Gobert get played off the court in the last few playoffs.
Oh, I'm just talking about culture-wise.
Oh, well, okay, but basketball-wise, Toronto isn't the French part of
It's
Canada.
close.
Are they
It's
sending him
close
to
to Quebec.
Montreal?
It's close.
Are they sending?
It's close.
We're moving
Hold
the
on, hold on,
Raptors to
hold on,
Montreal.
hold on.
Toronto's like, what, 100 miles away from
Gobert.
Quebec and Montreal?
Hold on. Who just did the
That was
me.
That was
Saul.
Saul.
Oh,
You see, I didn't put the Cookie Monster emphasis on it, though.
I am Rudy Gobert. I am here in Toronto. Like, what? I don't know.
Oh, God.
Look, I think Toronto may be more willing to move a piece because they have 6 guys that are really good, but nobody that is necessarily great. I think they may look at DA as a guy that could reach that potential. I don't mind Pascal coming back either, obviously, but I would prefer Kevin Durant, obviously.
You and everyone in the chat,
Yeah,
too.
I low-key feel like this is, I would prefer Kevin Durant, but I feel like this is more unrealistic just because there's been no indication that Toronto wants to trade Siakam. This is more like, there have been rumors. There was a report today from Jake Fisher that Toronto is interested in DA. They're one of the teams, along with, I think, Detroit, Portland, and
At this point, are
San
there any
Antonio or
teams
Indiana,
who
one
have
of those
said
two.
we're not interested? Because I feel like the list just gets longer and longer every
Well,
day.
I mean, most of the teams.
Phoenix.
Shit. No, but I do think like it's plausible, But for those who are not as high on this trade, I'm kind of surprised because he is, I mean, he's a little bit older in terms of potential stars, but like he's still a two-time All-NBA selection, and like he's only been in the league a couple years. He's a guy that you could turn to as not just a third option, but a secondary or even a primary option, depending on the defense that you're facing. And he's a really good defender. He could play small ball 5. He's not your full-time 5, and you'd still need to address that. But I mean, if you're talking about bringing a star here, like that's, aside from KD, probably about as good as you're realistically going to get.
Yeah, no, I agree on that. Like, if KD isn't a realistic possibility, this is obviously the deal you make if it is realistic at that point.
Well, great job, Gerald, of putting this all together. Also, shout out to David Nash, as you mentioned off the top, for his salary cap expertise.
Mm-hmm.
And a quick reminder to everyone listening, if you want to get into this a little bit more in depth, head over to gophnx.com and read Gerald's article on this, because it has way more nitty-gritty information in there, as well as specific dollar amounts and all of that kind of stuff. So if you're itching to get a little bit more information on all of the trade scenarios that we talked about today, that's the place to go. Also want to remind you, summer is here. Things are heating up. We're getting out on the town and going on vacations and things of that sort. Make sure you're staying safe and healthy. COVID-19 vaccines are free for everyone 5 and older. Those 12 and older are also now eligible for a booster. Visit azhealth.gov/find vaccine for a location near you. Was it really that bad?
You just sounded so old.
Yeah, she did. She really did.
Sorry. I sounded old.
Yeah.
That's okay.
By the way, I'm just going to throw this. I'll throw this out there. If there's no chance Katie's coming, I'm so confident I will shave my head.
Good
if
Lord.
DA is on the show, I will shave my head. If Kevin Durant,
First of all, can I shave
no,
it?
I'd like to bring in somebody that knows what the hell
First of all, this is when I have to step in and say, hell no, because if you shave your head, first of all, it'll be the whitest thing.
I'll wear a hat
since
after
snow.
that. Don't worry.
Okay, like, and you'll blind the screen. Like, no, that's not.
We would have to
reconfigure
reconfigure the lighting in here, Espo.
Yo, yeah. And what if he missed? Like, no, there's just no way.
I'll wear
That's
a damn
not happening.
hat.
Nope, veto, not happening.
Yeah,
No.
worry, it ain't gonna happen anyway. So.
Also, Connor asked, did Lindsey and Espo plan on twinning today?
No.
They
That was
said
a
in
very
unison.
definitive no.
Are you sure about that? The way you guys responded at the same time?
But
Twinsies.
if you are interested in the merch, head on over to our locker, phnxlocker.com, to pick some up. All right, guys, let's round out the show with an ad. Read Roulette.
Spin
Who's
that
going to be
beautiful
reading an
wheel.
I hope it's
OG's
a French
read.
accent so I can hear
And
the
in
Cookie
what
Monster
voice?
again.
Didn't we already do the French accent?
Yeah, I was joking.
All right, who's getting it today?
Hey now.
Oh,
Dun, dun, dun.
chill out,
That's a
buddy.
different
Chill
wheel.
That was
out.
aggressive.
That's a different wheel.
Oh, no.
Let's see what she has to read
Let's
the
go.
ad
The most
as.
annoying part of this is you guys won't even tell me what's on the wheel so I can at least semi-mentally prepare.
What does it say, Shane?
Is that
Mickey Mouse.
I feel like that was a really over-the-top reaction from you, Saul.
Oh no!
Does anybody know a Mickey Mouse voice?
I just did it.
Do it again. Not that. Say a word. This is gonna be.
Dear
so
Lord, that was terrible. That shit's gonna haunt me.
Do one
No,
more.
no, I said terrified.
Oh, yeah.
Do one more. Say hello. Say hello, Mickey Mouse.
Hello.
I can't do this. This is gonna be awful.
I'm gonna have a clown in my dreams talking like that tonight.
I don't think this is gonna be good at all.
Oh,
Don't
you gotta
worry,
do
they're
it.
not
Go,
supposed
you
to
gotta
be.
do it. Get
Is
through
it
it.
like hello? Something like that? That sounded terrible. That was awful. Oh my god, you
Oh, the kid
guys.
logging off now.
All right.
Oh my gosh.
Hello, everybody. Stop by your local dispensary and grab some amazing scratch-made THC gummies from our friends at OG's. Different flavors like blackberries and cream and watermelon. I feel like I'm slipping back into the other one that I did the other
Now
day.
you sound like you're Southern.
Southern Mickey Mouse. By golly, try some of THC.
If you're interested in trying the amazingly delicious variety of flavors that OG's Brands has to offer, go to ogsbrands.com. That's terrible. That's ogsbrands.com to find an OG's near you.
We definitely need to listen. What we need to do is we definitely need to look at the voice roulettes, and we all should have input into what voices we like
to hear it ahead of time, and then I can try and copy it. That's the hardest thing, is that like sometimes I can't remember what. I haven't watched a Mickey Mouse show in years.
We're gonna get so sued by Disney.
Shouldn't Mickey Mouse be close to that public domain thing too? Just like Winnie the Pooh.
Oh
it's coming up,
Have
right?
you seen that?
I haven't seen the trailer, but I saw the picture.
Well, there's not a trailer yet. There's some fake trailers.
Oh, there's not?
There's not an official trailer.
Terrifying.
Oh
I
my
can't wait for that
God.
thing.
Connor said, "Is this Southern?" Apparently, that's a thing that I do that I didn't know about.
It's because of your book.
My whole family is like, "Why do you have a Southern accent?" I get asked all the time if I'm like from Texas, and I'm like, I don't hear myself say it, but everybody else hears
y'all.
it. Well, yeah, but that's different.
Is it though? That's a
Well,
very Texas thing.
Yeah, but I feel like it's also just like a neutral thing too.
Not the
That's
way you
why
say
I go
it.
into it.
You're always like,
Whatever.
come on, y'all. I'm like,
All right,
what
well,
the hell?
thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate
the
you
hell?
as always. We'll be back here tomorrow at 2 p.m. So plan to come hang out with us. Until then, you can follow me on Twitter at Lindsey Smith AC. You can follow Saul at Saul_Bookman. You can follow Gerald at Gerald Bourguet. And of course, you can follow Espo at Espo. So take us home.
Remember, friends don't let friends use the ESPN trade machine. Ahoy, hoy.
Hey yo, my lifestyle is retro. Tell the Phoenix Metro. Megas in control and he ain't never gonna let go. PHNX though, Lindsey, Gerald, Espo. Saw past the ball, we here to turn up the tempo. Got to understand me, I'll always rep the family. Rally in the valley like Dan G, no plan B. Always on